Developing yourself and others by 9 Dots Development, introducing Bev Holloway and Kerry Clarkson to talk about managing stakeholders.
Hi everyone, I'm Bev Holloway. I'm Head of Learning Solutions here at 9 Dots. Welcome to our podcast.
Hi everyone, my name's Kerry. I'm the trainer here at 9 Dots.
Great. Well, as I said, welcome to the podcast. What we're going to be talking about today is stakeholders, but a little bit of a different take on stakeholders. What we're thinking about really is around when you think of stakeholders, there's a model by Eden and Ackerman, isn't there?
That's it,
and
yeah.
It's called the power interest model. And what's always interested me is the power bit of that.
Absolutely.
So there's the idea, isn't it, that power is kind of, given to you. You get that kind of hierarchical power, don't you?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've sort of thought about that.
Yeah, it's like based on the role. Sometimes is it in an organisation, maybe the person with the power is the one with the top job. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's about the politics side within an office as well, about who makes the decisions, who's got that power, who's influencing who's got a word in somebody's ear as well. Yeah,
and I think it's much more, in my experience, it's much more not kind of what you know always, but who you know.
Yes.
And I know we were talking the other day about a blog that we'd read a while ago, and it's by Bonnie Marcus, and it's on www.forbes.com. And it was an article, and she said what she'd learned in her career that's helped her in her career around politics, and how it's helped her change her career, really. It was quite an interesting read, and there's quite a few lessons for us, and we just kind of want to talk a little bit around some of the elements from that and what we think about it.
Yeah, it was fascinating, really, because it's almost like a myth, isn't it, that it's hierarchical, but what Bonnie was looking at was actually by avoiding that office politics, you could actually sabotage your career. It's actually really important that you get involved with speaking to those people who are within the office and the organisation, not actually putting yourself out of the picture, but actually being involved in it. Because it's not just about great performance.
It isn't. Great performance is what you need to do. And I remember as a young person just coming into the working world, I thought it was all about work really hard, do the best you can,
get your head down,
and you work, and you'll go up the ladder. And I got a little bit up the ladder, but then I realised actually there's other people going up this ladder who don't seem to be doing quite as much slog as me, and they seem to be talking a lot. And it's like, hang on, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And you kind of start to realise it really is about who you're talking to, what conversations you're having. And like you were saying a moment ago, that kind of who's the people with the power, who's the people with the influence.
Yeah, cause it's frustrating and demotivating as well if you're seeing these people who might not be doing as a good job as you, but because they're talking to the right people, they're the ones getting promoted. But it's really interesting because this being able to talk to people, this kind of being politically savvy that Bonnie calls it, the great performance and being politically savvy will work together, and it is a skill. It isn't something that is a trait within you. You can actually learn it and know how to do it.
And that's the key thing, isn't it? Because I think for me, I'm a natural introvert. And that's why when I was, starting out in the working world, it was about, keeping your head down and doing stuff. But actually being a natural introvert, I'm not sort of the social introvert. I can talk and converse with people, but that's like kind of you get the energy from within.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more difficult. It takes a lot more energy to go out and do that. Whereas yourself, you're more of an extrovert. But how do you find networking and stuff like that?
It's easy. I mean, it takes a lot of energy. It does. And it's a lot of. You have to kind of invest your time and energy, but it's making sure that you do it with the right people as well. But it's making sure that there's different things. It's like making sure that you're not speaking to everybody, spending all your time with everyone. It's actually the right people having the right conversations. But it's you can see it sometimes. You can see why some introverts might not actually get involved in it because you're thinking it's. Sometimes people think it's a bad thing.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
And in her article, she said because it's a skill, you can do it with integrity.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, people do find it's a lot more about that manipulative side. You see the office politics kind of stuff, the stuff, things happening in real politics, but it's not about that, I sense. And I think there was a couple of other points that she made around that, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you're right, it isn't, you're not giving up on your values or your beliefs. It is literally trying to find something of interest with somebody so you can actually start a conversation. But it's actually, there's 3 different things that she actually identifies. The first being this power and influence, making sure that you kind of connect with this strategic network of people, that you connect with these people, you speak to them about certain things. But it's just making sure that it's what you trying to find that thing that you have in common with them and connect with them and communicate with them in a way that some people communicate in different ways, don't they? Some are visual, some are auditory.
Yeah.
And it's trying to find that.
That's it. Some like a lot of details, some
Yeah.
like the big picture. And I think what was really interesting about what she was saying is the strategic part. So you've got to be a bit strategic around things in your network. So I think I certainly know when I was kind of in the olden days, it was never about necessarily going with a big business case, sort of presenting this business case. It wasn't about that. It was much more around you had to talk to people outside the room, do the pre-positioning almost. So the decisions were made outside the room. And you just come in and everybody says yes or no.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's your experience.
Absolutely. It's like planting that seed kind of thing because, people, in my experiences where they've, decisions are made on the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
On the
back in the 80s.
Absolutely. On the tee. A decision was made over either on the golf course or in the club after or the races. Decisions and conversations were had, and then they're implemented on the Monday, and people were kind of left out because they weren't in that kind of strategic network. So it's kind of making sure that you're with the people who make the decisions, who have the power and influence, but also the people that they connect with. So it might not be directly the person, it's actually kind of having a conversation with the person that can influence them. Yeah,
certainly that's what I found, because often it's really difficult to get to the top person or the person you actually need to get to. So it's knowing who in your network goes to their network. It's like that kind of 7 stages or 6 stages separation, the Kevin Bacon thing. But it is really about that.
It's like, who has your back, who can influence them, who knows about you, and who will big you up to that person for you when you're not in the room. So it's really interesting.
What was the second point?
The second one was kind of those unwritten rules that you sometimes get, so behaviours, things that you kind of pick up on. So things like, for example, if you start a new job and you get the contract and it's like, right, so we'll see you in the office at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, and you think, right, no, I'll go early, I'll go at 10 to 9, make sure I'm there in time. And you walk in and everyone's on their 3rd cup of tea and had a bit of breakfast already, and you're thinking,
and you're going,
hang on,
why didn't they tell me this?
Well, that's it. It's that unwritten rule that we get there, at 7:30 and everyone's got head down, because that's the unwritten rule.
What's the culture of it? What you're navigating there, that unwritten rules, and learning those.
And it's trying to like understand what, without actually, it's not on paper, but kind of picking up on that and understanding, hang on, what's going on, what's going on behind the scenes here, and it's trying to get to speak to people and raise challenges with them, anything that you're worried about, and making sure that actually, let me in, let me understand what's going on here.
Find out the people who know, so that you can understand those unwritten rules and start choosing to live by them or not. It doesn't, you're not trying to change who you are, you're trying to be authentic, I think.
That's it.
And I think there was the third one she was talking about was about culture specifically, and there was more around a gender culture, wasn't it?
Yeah, really interesting, because there's gender biases and stereotypes and roles. And in the FTSE 100, interestingly, 10 years ago, have a guess how many people were at how many females, for example, if we're looking at a gender bias in a culture kind of environment. What percentage of the FTSE 100 were women, do you think, CEOs?
What, the CEOs? Oh, I don't know. Were there any?
I know. I don't know.
Well, maybe 10 years ago, probably about 2%.
Not so bad then, 4%.
Oh, well,
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, that's blinking, small, isn't it?
It is.
Quite small.
It is. And so 10 years later then, what do you think it's grown by?
Well, we've had the Me Too movement, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think women are finding a lot more agency. I certainly hope that there's doing that. So I'd really hope that that's kind of moved. I don't know, Me Too was recently, I don't know, let's say, oh no, it's 4%. So let's say, I don't know, 10%?
Getting along, we're going there, we're going in the right direction. So it's up to 6% now.
Okay,
so
6.1%.
Yes. So which means 94% of CEOs in FTSE 100 are men.
Yeah.
So it's what is the culture? What is the what is kind of felt through the company?
Yeah,
like a cascade.
What's the stereotype? A bit like the unwritten rules, but what's the stereotypes? Are people going to those norms?
Yeah.
But I think it's, when you talk about culture, there is the gender thing, and hopefully women are obviously starting to push through now, and hopefully we can talk less about a glass ceiling in the future. But I think something that I always found really useful was a model by Handy.
Yes.
The Gods of Culture, I think it's called, 1999. And it's about sort of 4 types of kind of culture around there: power, role, person and task. And I think what we've been talking about is quite useful, because it links in quite nicely to that. I mean, you train this quite well, don't you? We discuss this a lot in our leadership and management courses.
Yeah, absolutely. And the power one is what we've talked about, is where this one person has that influence, that control, and people look to that person and go, well, what do you think then? And that person has that influence.
But also not just influence, they kind of have that network, don't they? And they force that through. It can be done positively, and there's quick and agency and things move. Or when it's not done so well, it can be quite toxic. There's little silos. They're trying to. Absolutely. You've got to be in this world, haven't you?
Yeah.
That part of that, which links into that power influence thing.
It really does. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different kind of theories which you might want to look into about where you can see where they all kind of link together.
Yeah.
And one thing we've kind of realised recently with the pandemic is how one of Handy's ones has been like the task. Kind of culture. Yeah,
because the task culture is about, you have a project and different people from all the different functions will come together. They're the ones, the best expertise for that actual task. And I think the remote working has meant that people have had to kind of come together on whatever, Teams meetings, all those kind of stuff, talk through everything. Everyone has to bring their own bit, go away and do that. So the task culture seems to have come through. It's a bit more difficult to do the other cultures. Politics in that kind of environment is a lot more difficult, because you can't talk in corridors, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And that's where a lot of power and influence and decision making happens.
So it's those conversations again outside that.
I
think it's I do. And I think that brings us back, doesn't it, to the idea that there's also the role theory that he talks about. One of the cultures is the role culture, where it's about the hierarchy. So in factories, it's quite a maybe more commonplace that there's the person at the top, and the role is where the power is. So the next person down, the power is in that role, all the way down.
It's like a traditional structure, isn't it?
Traditional hierarchy. So people, on the factory floor maybe don't have as much agency, as much ability to change things. But actually, I think all of this is dependent on your organisation. But what I've learned from as we're going through, it's about knowing who your people are that will influence you and that you can influence. I think that's one of the key things.
Absolutely, yeah, and knowing not to try to influence the whole organisation.
Yes.
There's another theory, role set theory, where it's looking at about 6 to 8 people.
Yeah.
That you can really kind of connect with and influence, and really make sure that you can have those quality conversations with them. So yeah, lots of kind of overlapping theories, but lots to think about. So I think I'm gonna get that the Eden Ackerman, the stakeholder analysis.
Yeah.
Think about my 6 to 8 people, and I'm going to
kind of map them on
there.
Yeah, I think so. And and I wonder, in the audience, what ways can you really use your political savvy a bit more, and maybe use some of the tools we talked about to help support that. Thanks for listening. We've really enjoyed the conversation, and looking forward to seeing you again.
See you soon.